Dropping the Bucket and Sponge, Chapter 23, the original NATA, and Far Beyond the Shoebox. Chapter 23, the original NATA. I think it's important to understand why Dropping the Bucket and Sponge and Far Beyond the Shoebox are critical to learning about leadership in athletic training. When you consider the generations of athletic trainers that came before us, dating back over a century, you have to understand that without their leadership and the risks they were willing to take, we wouldn't be where we are today as a profession and as an association. And the advances that were made over the course of the century plus were made by people just like you and me who were willing to step out and fight for athletic training and the service we provide now to the patients we serve. So in Chapter 23, the original NATA, I think it's important to remember and consider that although that effort technically was a failure, the groundwork it provided made the transition to the second and current NATA easier. As I read it, I couldn't agree more with the statement, quote, "It is not only dues that committed members contribute to an organization, but it's also their efforts to better the profession on a daily basis," end quote. I would contend that this is more important in the long run, but a healthy treasury is imperative in the short run. As you should know, and I'm sure you do, the current NATA was founded in 1950. The challenge of leading is changing. What Matt Weber said was that, quote, "a relatively small number of people did big things," unquote, into a wider and wider number of contributors. The first Ader and the Kramer family were critical to the first association, with the first meeting being held at the Drake Relays in 1938. In the old days, and actually until the late 70s, a lot of the organizational meetings for athletic trainers took place at these large track meets. That was a time when most athletic trainers were together at one time, and typically it was the head athletic trainer from the university who accompanied their track and field teams to these meets. The same thing happened in smaller meets, like the Ohio Valley Conference outdoor track meets, which I was most familiar with, and happened until the early 80s. At that time, we all would go, head athletic trainers and assistants, to the outdoor track and field meets, because first, the school was typically over and these were the only athletes that were still involved. Secondly, track and field demands a lot of athletic trainers be present because of the number of athletes. And thirdly, it was a way to have clinical sessions and to formally discuss business of the Ohio Valley Conference athletic trainers. We'll project that back to 1938, and you can see why the Drake Relays were chosen as the first meeting place for the first incarnation of the National Athletic Trainers Association. Senior, junior, and associate members mirror in a lot of ways current NATA membership classes, certified student and associate. Although it is interesting that assistant and high school athletic trainers were relegated to becoming members of the junior class. I don't think that would work today. As with any organization, flawed governing documents are ones that cannot be adapted with time, and changes will lead to an effective, then non-existent organization. As more and more athletic trainers did not feel represented, as many lost their voting rights, the falls led to a failing membership. Taking away the right for junior members to vote alienated an entire class of athletic trainers who, like the senior athletic trainers, was a terrible and short-sighted move. Even in the first incarnation, the need to promote and hire high school athletic trainers were apparent. The work to advance coverage for these athletes was as critical then as it is now, and they tried to address it by promoting high school athletic trainers. This further confuses me as to why they would take their voting rights away from them. I believe in spite of the critical mistakes that were made, without World War II, the association might have had a chance to overcome their blunders and survive. But the war took so many athletic trainers off the sidelines, it left a shell behind that could not stand on its own. It's probably no coincidence then that the modern NATA was formed in 1950, after the war, as well as after everyone had a chance to think about the first iteration and all that went wrong. As they came back from the war, went back to their universities and or other places of employment and began to work, they again realized the need to get together and form an association. And then the right leader stepped up, William E. Pinky Newell, and others like him who would apply all the lessons learned from the first NATA and improve on what was there to found an association that could survive and thrive even during tough and maybe near cataclysmic times that would follow. Leadership not only takes people where they haven't been, they learn from history and do not commit the same mistakes twice.